Let's take a look at all things money matters now. The JSE is firmer so far at midday trade, while its global peers are mixed as investors digest a more hawkish tone by central bankers. There is speculation that even the European Central Bank may get into action later in 2022. Petri Redelinghuys, trader and founder of Herenya Capital Advisors, joins us now to talk us through the latest moves on the markets. A happy Monday to you, Petri. So how are we faring this hour at least?
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me. So far today, I suppose we're off to a relatively decent start. I mean, the market is positive by around 1/3%, although volumes are very, very low. We've had a week basically where China was closed, and the world, I suppose the full market comes back to life. So we had an Asian trading session or Chinese trading session for the first time in a while, well, Friday actually, and then again today. But so far, it's sort of off to a slow start for the week. I mean, markets are positive. Most of the market is kind of lifting and doing relatively well, but relatively low volume. So I think there's quite a bit of uncertainties out in the marketplace at this moment that we're just kind of waiting for a little bit of clarity on. For example, what's going to happen with cryptocurrency prices for the rest of the year. I think there's a lot of people that are leveraged long and exposed to that. So, more pressure is being put on cryptocurrencies. That's kind of like a risk leader at this point for the rest of the market. So we're kind of just in a state of limbo, I guess you would say. But overall, I mean, not a bad day for the market. Broadly, the market is higher on the day. So, off to a decent start for the week. Just we could do a little more on the trading volumes.
Let's take a look at foreign exchange reserves in the country, declining to around $57 billion in January of 2022. Talk us through that decline and what it tells us about the state of our economic affairs.
So basically, I mean, we're just kind of spending a lot of money. We've taken on a few extra loans as well, and we're obviously paying a lot of interest in foreign currency as, a country, or as South Africa, we're paying a lot of foreign currency interest on loans and that kind of thing. But for now, we're in a relatively decent spot. I think, global trade has been affected negatively thanks to COVID-19. We know that, there's been a whole bunch of supply chain issues, and that kind of puts quite a bit of pressure on, global trade. What is interesting to note, though, is how foreign currency reserves have reduced while mining companies have been doing really well, right? Commodity prices have been supportive. The rand has been doing relatively well. It's been doing a lot better over the last 6 months, but, historically, over the last 2 years, it's done fairly poorly. So this has been a good space for exporting companies. So you would have expected, I guess, exports, higher level of exports, particularly in the commodity and mineral space, to kind of offset that trade balance. We saw the trade balance numbers not so long ago. Now we see that there's a reduction in our foreign currency reserves, which means we have to build it up. I think, the rand has been nice and strong recently, so maybe now is a good time to buy some US dollars and some foreign currency. But, I mean, I guess it's just indicative of a struggling economy, right? Our economy is recovering as such. You can see that coming through in some of the company earnings and stuff, as there's a sharp, resurgence in earnings or recovery in earnings as, during the pandemic, things have been really bad. However, we're not yet back to pre-pandemic levels. Obviously, unemployment has gone up and all sorts of, other things that have really sort of spiraled out of control. So we're in a tough spot, make no mistake, right? But we hope that essentially the lockdowns will come to an end. It's starting to look a lot like countries around the world are starting to sort of backtrack on a lot of the regulations that they've set during the COVID period, restriction of movement, vaccine passes and that kind of stuff. If we can sort of just roll back to a point where we're going, okay, well, normal life is starting to return, then we can see a little bit of confidence come back to our economy and potentially see some growth.
We live in hope. Let's take a look at mining matters. Sibanye-Stillwater has completed the acquisition of Sandouville nickel processing facilities. What do we need to know about that?
So nickel is this is a forward movement thing. There was a bit of resistance to this. Sibanye has come out and said that, look, they're 100% sure that the transaction that they did is legal. There's some people complaining that, it was R1 billion, or, a big transaction and a big acquisition, and it might not necessarily be fair to the rest of the market and that kind of stuff. But Sibanye assures that they've ticked all the boxes and dotted the I's and crossed the T's. And, generally it's a relatively good transaction. Nickel is one of those materials that is going to continue to be needed in sort of battery manufacture and energy storage sort of sectors, if you will. And that, I think, is a forward-looking move from someone like Sibanye. They've been very proactive in cleaning up the portfolio of minerals that they mine. You see their operations in the U.S. is very much focused on recycling and that kind of stuff. So they're kind of future-proofing their business, I think. It was a relatively good transaction. I think it's going to take some time, maybe 12 to 18 months before it really starts to pay dividends for the Sibanye shareholder, if you will. But I think it's a good move. It's a forward-looking move and trying to stay relevant and trying to be in the sort of particular metals that are going to have a continued use case into the future.
Is this a good move? Fishing group Oceana has suspended its CFO on a precautionary basis pending a further process. What's going on?
Well, we don't know, right? So what we do know at this stage, or at least what I know at this stage, maybe there are some people that know more than I do on the topic, I'm sure there are. But at least from what I know is we've got a cautionary from them late last year saying, look, guys, cautionary profitability, there is some changes coming up that will have a material impact on the earnings of the company and on the share price of the company. And then kind of silence, and now we see the suspension of a director, of a top-level guy. So something went wrong, and we're just not sure what yet. So I guess we're waiting now for, results and for more detailed report as to exactly what is happening here. But I think what happens in the marketplace is this, particularly for us who've lived through Steinhoff, and I mean, that's most of the people, I guess, watching this as well. When these types of very drastic moves happen, it does raise a lot of alarm bells and create a lot of fear. The share price hasn't absolutely collapsed. Last I saw it was down something like 3.5% on the day. So it was under a bit of pressure. It's currently down 3% on the day. So it's under a bit of pressure, but it hasn't absolutely collapsed. Nobody's really fearful that it's a Steinhoff type situation, but it is definitely something to be concerned about. I guess we have to wait for more information from the company until we know more.
We'll sit and wait. Thank you very much, Petri Redelinghuys of Herenya Capital.